When I was in college, I think that I came into the most severe realization to my ancestry in regards to this country when it came to slavery. I had to do a paper with regards to the 13th Amendment. And what I came to realize that when you look back at the 13th Amendment, there's two sides. And the reason why there is two sides is because first you had the Union, which divided into becoming the Union and the Confederacy. And so when you look at the 13th Amendment, you're looking at two different spectrums of ideals uh, when it comes to the direction of this country. Are we going to keep slavery or are we not going to keep slavery? But first, I want to be able to give you details before I get into it a little bit more because there's two sides. One side is Republican and one side is Democrat. And if you realize what side is Republican and what side is Democrat, maybe it begins to change your perspective with regards to your voting experiences. Let's go to the lab real quick and let somebody detail you in with regards to the Civil War.
Was the American Civil War fought because of slavery? More than 150 years later, this remains a controversial question. Why? Because many people don't want to believe that the citizens of the southern states were willing to fight and die to preserve a morally repugnant institution. There has to be another reason, we are told. Well, there isn't. The evidence is clear and overwhelming. Slavery was, by a wide margin, the single most important cause of the Civil War for both sides. Before the presidential election of 1860, a South Carolina newspaper warned that the issue before the country was the extinction of slavery and called on all who were not prepared to surrender the institution to act. Shortly after Abraham Lincoln's victory, they did. The secession documents of every Southern state made clear, crystal clear, that they were leaving the Union in order to protect their peculiar institution of slavery, a phrase that at the time meant the thing special to them.
So that side is the Democratic side. The side that wanted slavery, the side that wanted to break away from the Union, which is going to be the North side, with regards to the split that has happened in the making of the Confederacy. The North side was becoming more industrialized and being more open to less farm work and more industrial work where people were beginning to work in factories.
Vote to secede was 169-0 in South Carolina, 166-7 in Texas, 84-15 in Mississippi. In no Southern state was the vote close. Alexander Stephens of Georgia, the Confederacy's vice president, clearly articulated the views of the South in March 1861. Our new government, he said, was founded on slavery. Its foundations are laid. Its cornerstone rests upon the great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man, that slavery, submission to the superior race, is his natural and normal condition. Yet despite the evidence, Many continue to argue that other factors superseded slavery as the cause of the Civil War. Some argue that the South only wanted to protect states' rights. But this raises an obvious question. The states' rights to what? Wasn't it to maintain and spread slavery? Moreover, states' rights was not an exclusive Southern issue. All the states, North and South, sought to protect their rights. Sometimes they petitioned the federal government. Sometimes they quarreled with each other. In fact, Mississippians complained that New York had too strong a concept of states' rights because it would not allow Delta planters to bring their slaves to Manhattan. The South was preoccupied with states' rights because it was preoccupied first and foremost with retaining slavery. Some argue that the cause of the war was economic. The North was industrial and the South agrarian. And so the two lived in such economically different societies that they could no longer stay together. Not true. In the middle of the 19th century, both North and South were agrarian societies. In fact, the North produced far more food crops than did the South. But Northern farmers had to pay their farmhands, who were free to come and go as they pleased.
So these farmhands were mainly indentured servants, to where the indentured service, and they was mainly European servitude, to where these individuals will get paid to work on the farms, unlike the individuals in the North who were particularly more so black slaves. I'm not getting into that just to talk about the whole mechanism of, the South, um, the split and divide, but the split and divide that is still current into this day.
While Southern plantation owners exploited slaves over whom they had total control. And it wasn't
Total control. So listen, just while we're speaking about that, how do you think the Democratic Party gets total control of you today? You know what I'm saying? How do you take the bait with regards to the Democratic Party? They always trying to offer you something. Just how they bankrupting the U.S. economy, particularly from state to state. And I'm not going to go into the U.S. economy. I'm just going to go from the states that Democrats are running right now with regards to the immigration issue. Why are these states becoming bankrupt? Because they offering you some type of social welfare, some type of social health that they know they can't pay for. But if they are allowed to get you in staying in existence in this country by baiting you in while having taxpayers foot the bill in order to get your vote, their whole power structure is based on getting you to vote for them so they can maintain their ideology. And their ideology is set forth in the 13th Amendment, and we cannot forget that.
just plantation owners who supported slavery. The slave society was embraced by all classes in the South. The rich had multiple motivations for wanting to maintain slavery, but so did the poor, non-slaveholding whites. The peculiar institution ensured that they did not fall to the bottom rung of the social ladder. That's
So you see that even, and not everyone owned slaves, not all whites owned slaves in the South. It was more of a cultural thing. And what this having a slave in the South did was allow the individuals who didn't own slaves the opportunity to have just a higher hierarchy over the slave when it comes to the culture, the economy, or it gave them a better stance to be above and not be the like he said the bottom of the ladder. So not everybody in the South owned slaves. It was more of a cultural thing.
why another argument that the Civil War couldn't have been about slavery because so few people owned slaves has little merit. Finally, many have argued that President Abraham Lincoln fought the war to keep the Union together, not to end slavery. That was true at the outset of the war, but he did so with the clear knowledge that keeping the Union together meant either spreading slavery to all the states, an unacceptable solution, or vanquishing it altogether.
So he was going to try to keep slavery in all the states, which he knew was going to be impossible. This is Abraham Lincoln, or vanquishing it altogether. So he had two options. The two options, when you find out, when you look at this 13th Amendment, was in order to keep the Union together, was limit the kind of slavery that you are allowed to get. Primarily, you can get it through like convict leasing, through the black codes, the vagrancy laws. This comes up not in this video, but this is how they kept individuals in the system. This is how, when you look at mass incarceration, when you look at the war on drugs, when you look at these things, this is all a part of a democratic ideology. Even though Reagan pushed the war on drugs, right? It wasn't pushed that hard until Reagan. However, it fit right into the democratic scheme of things, right? And it allows them to stay. It allows them to stay in existence because their whole scheme of things is to have control over and power over a workforce, and they give them to the social elite. They give it to the populace. The people who want to exploit the immigrant nowadays are these populists who are looking for cheap labor. And why are they looking for cheap labor? Because not only are the states attempting to control the people, but they want to control the corporations. They want to treat the corporations as if, okay, we are the majority in this state, and if you want to play ball in this state, we are the fourth largest economy in the world. If you want to play ball in this state, you're going to come under our control. You're going to do what we say do, and you're going to be pretty much run by us, or you're going to leave.
In a famous campaign speech in 1858, Lincoln said, "A house divided against itself cannot stand." What was it that divided the country? It was slavery and only slavery. He continued, "I believe this government cannot endure permanently half slave and half free. It will become all one thing or all the other." Lincoln's view never changed, and as the war progressed, the moral component, ending slavery, became more and more fixed in his mind. His Emancipation Proclamation in 1863 turned that into law. Slavery is the great shame of America's history. No one denies that. But it's to America's everlasting credit that it fought the most devastating war in its history in order to abolish slavery. As a soldier, I am proud that the United States Army, my army, defeated the Confederates. In its finest hour, soldiers wearing this blue uniform, almost 200,000 of them former slaves themselves, destroyed chattel slavery, freed 4 million men, women, and children from human bondage, and saved the United States of America. I'm Colonel Ty Sigilly, professor and head, Department of History at the United States Military Academy, West Point, for Prager University.
Save the United States of America. So the United States of America wouldn't be the United States of America today if you would have fought. Wouldn't if the Union would have lost the Civil War. So when we look at this amendment, there's two sides. Neither slave nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for crimes whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist in the United States, or any place subject to their jurisdiction. So, as I said, this is the Republican side, and this is the union this is pretty much the union that brings us back from being a union and a confederacy into one big union all over again, which we see today is the United States. But this side is the Democratic side, except as punishment for crimes whereof the party shall have been duly convicted. Why is this so important? Because today we see that you have governors like Tim Walz still talking about a civil war is brewing with regards to this illegal immigration. Well, I'm gonna tell you right now, the Civil War is never actually over because of the 13th Amendment. As long as you have a Democratic Party and a Democratic ideology in the scheme of things, with regards to they're just being more tricky about the way they're going about it. You know what I'm saying? Instead of it's always been about labor. It's always been about exploiting the workforce. While the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, steady pushing you to be free, to free enterprise. The Democratic Party steady try to bind you in with laws, regulations, taxes. And people have got to understand that if the Democratic Party uh, would have not been such a factor in the 13th Amendment, in the making of the 13th Amendment, that they should have been abolished during the Civil War. However, they're not abolished. They're still here. And this ideology with regards to the 13th Amendment is still in existence. And what is the key point today that we're looking at when it comes to this whole immigration thing? It's labor. It's the exploitation of labor. So what side do you really want to vote for? You know, do you want to vote Democrat or do you want to vote Republican? Do you remember the mass incarceration? Do you remember the black codes and the vagrancy laws? Do you remember why do you remember the Becerra program? Do you remember these things? Do you remember the immigration issue that we're going through right now? If you notice, all of the Democratic states got a bunch of fraud going on in them right now, from Minneapolis to California. All these states is being attacked for waste, fraud, and abuse. They're going to get you some way, somehow, to be on their side. It's all about what side you want to be on. Tiny Cross-H.U.G on the Trumped Up Live Show. Always remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. It's a good day. It's a good day to be a soldier. It's all about what kind of soldier you want to be.